Well, in a sea of chaos, I made a judgment call. I decided to embrace the chaos. Well, as you can see, I returned to the base of Robert's Cave and still eyeing this tree in the rock composition. And I think what's interesting about it is when I look at it with my eyes and not necessarily through the lens, I can see the contrast between the tree and the rocks. But you know, I've captured some test images of this before, and that contrast never really comes out. And what I've always felt that I needed was a good warm light, just kind of a beam of light hitting that tree. I can kind of trick it a little bit in Photoshop, but you know, really not a big fan of that. But and I'm not going to get any light this morning, but nevertheless, I mean, the composition, I don't know, it just calls to me, begging to be photographed. And I just can't figure out how to do it. I've got a different perspective on it from kind of the right side of the tree. And I think it's better than kind of straight on, like I was looking at last night. But the crack in the rock, I really can't capture that. I think that really added to the image. That crack in the rock was nice. So, although I think what I like about this is the contrast between the tree and the background, but it's also the texture of the scene, the textured rocks, and it just, I mean, it's a beautiful scene, and I'm trying to capture that image so that I can bring the viewer right here and see what I'm seeing. And this is just proving to be a very difficult task. You know, in the end, I mean, I really strive to make my images look like I saw them when I was here, and so I'm hoping to get some warm light. But then again, you know, it's kind of like Ansel Adams said. I think I mentioned this in another video, but you know, we don't necessarily take a photo, we make it. Well, so I had a nice big fog roll in. I mean, it's nice, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't help my composition down below. I'm on top of Robert's Cave right now, and I'm trying to use the fog and work that in with my composition. I don't know how much time I have. It's quite lovely, but yeah, it just doesn't, I've shot a couple compositions up here before, just trying to figure out how I can work that fog in, so. You know, in last week's video, I think it was last week's video, I'll post a link to that in the description, but it was titled Think Like a Lens. And, you know, in addition to moving around a scene here, you know, and moving around changes up everything, the whole composition. But when you think about what lenses, what tools do you have? And I think that's the way I think of it, you know, when I approach a scene. Okay, what composition can I make here? And what tools do I have? Do I have wide angle? Do I have a zoom? And how do I use those to my advantage? And so thinking like a lens also helps. So in addition to moving around and changing the perspective of your composition, you know, if you have a wide angle, you might be thinking about distortion, getting in close. But this scene can be chaotic with all the trees and all the rock formations. Everything's beautiful and you want to photograph it all, but you got to make sense of that chaos. And you can do that sometimes wide angle, sometimes with a smaller or with a larger aperture, smaller f-stop. But and sometimes you can use a zoom lens to kind of compress the scene and even blur out the background to kind of cut down on some of this chaos and distortion, or some of the chaotic, distracting elements that are coming into the scene, I should say. Well, let me get busy. I'm losing the fog, and it's just chaos here. It's just, I mean, there's compositions, but there's a lot of distractions coming in at different angles, and yeah, I just can't come up with a composition. Not one I like, anyway. Yeah, it can be frustrating sometimes. But again, you have to remind yourself, I'm on the top of the world right now, enjoying myself and in the great outdoors, and it's morning time and I've got the whole place to myself, so image or no image, doesn't matter. in a sea of chaos, I made a judgment call. I decided to embrace the chaos. So I included quite a bit in my composition, although the main subject is the rock formation. Hopefully I was able to bring in some balance with a couple of trees on each side. I shot a couple different compositions on this, some with a little bit more foreground than the other, kind of cascading rocks, if you will. So, and a couple of different aspect ratios, a 3:2 and a 5:4. I'm not sure which one I'll like better. In fact, I'm not sure if I'll like any of them. But I do think the transition from kind of a more stark contrast to a fading out contrast with the fog provides almost a leading line through the image. At least that's the way I see it right now. But I don't know if I'll like this image or not. But as I always say, you never really know until you get back into post-processing. Well, I captured the same image with my f2.AS. We'll see how that turns out. I don't know. Give me something to compare it to. I don't know, black and white might really look good right here. It's peaceful up here. It's beautiful. That fog is really sticking around. Some light gusts of wind. A little cold. It's right at freezing. But you know what? If I captured a good image, it's worth it. And if I didn't capture a good image, it's worth it anyway. It's all about the experience. I hope you maybe picked up a few tips that might benefit you down the road, and maybe stuff those in your kit and use them for later. But I mentioned that video, Think Like a Lens. I'll leave a link to that at the end. Make sure you go check that out and let me know what you thought. So I want to get out of here, but hey, if you like the video, make sure you hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel. And if you do subscribe, hit that bell icon so you're notified of any future videos that I post. And as always, if I don't see you down the road, maybe I'll see you on the trail.
When viewing images in post-processing, I often reflect on my experience and revisit my goals at the time of capture. We are sometimes our worst critics, but to my credit, I think these images match the atmosphere and mood of the scene I had hoped to convey in the photograph. I guess it's like Ansel Adams said, you don't take a photograph, you make it.